Gorgeous. Welcome back to All of the Above with me, Emma Kyo. So this week I have a really special guest on, which I had on about 3.5 years. She is a best-selling author and also a podcaster. She is the one and only Caroline Foran.
So nice to be here. This is a vibe. This is a whole setup that I wasn't expecting, and it's so nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason I have Caroline on today is because she is like an anxiety expert, but not only an expert, you have been through the trenches yourself. And that's why you got to a point where you have your podcast and you are an author as well, because you wanted to share your experiences with people as well.
Yeah. I often feel like I need to preface anything I do by saying I'm not an official expert because I don't have that little piece of paper.
It's a personal expertise point of view.
It's a lived experience with a huge amount of research and like conversations with experts that I'm so intimate with anxiety and knowing how it functions in the body that I feel like you have to experience it to a great extent to be able to know, to understand it, and then help other people feel their way through it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm in an intimate relationship with anxiety.
Yeah, maybe that sounded a bit weird, did it?
No, because when you think about it as well, there is so many like experts out there, and then people who have went to college for, neuroscience, for psychology, for like, bodies as well. But you do really have to live through an experience in order to talk about it. Like I think as well, like you can't study things, but you have to experience it in order to really feel it and give it out to the world.
Yeah, because it's one thing to, read about something and another thing to feel it and it to be personal and know how to respond. And it doesn't always hold up, like what you read in a textbook doesn't always apply to human experience. So, but I do also think that most people who wind up studying and becoming experts, whether they're psychologists or psychiatrists, they often come from the experience of having gone through something and really have that curiosity of wanting to know more about that or to support themselves or someone else. So like I am going to, hopefully, if all goes well, I'm going to start a master's this summer in the psychology and neuroscience of mental health.
Oh my God, amazing. I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, I just really want to delve into that a bit more. I feel like I probably know a lot already, but I want to formalize it. And then when I do podcasts, I don't have to say, sorry, I'm not an expert.
I know what you mean, to actually just have that little,
It legitimizes what you do. But oftentimes it's just a societal prerequisite, I think, to be taken seriously.
Yeah, like you do need, even though you've lived the experience as well, you do need some form of, why is my brain just gone there now? Diploma, certificate, education to back that as well.
Yeah, I mean, then you've kind of coming at it from both angles, and that's really invaluable to people who are going through it. And people are going through it right now. Yeah,
and talking about going through it, I actually took down some stats last night when I was writing out all my questions. And it's actually crazy, right? So I have here pre-COVID, so 2016 to 2019, this is in Ireland now, around 5% of adults were diagnosed, with anxiety disorders, okay? So I was like, oh, that seems quite kind of low. Do you know what I mean? But for what we know of. Then around after COVID, 2024 to 2025, because I feel it's only hitting now the last year or so, nearly 18%.
Wow.
That's over tripled. That's tripled.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. And it was really interesting for me. Obviously, it was a terrible time and people were really negatively affected by it. But to see something affect us on a global, like that's never happened before, like that we were all of our nervous systems were compromised by this legitimate threat that was outside our door. We were sending messages to ourselves daily being told, you're not safe, you need to do this, you need to wear a mask, being around people isn't safe. That gets in on you. And even if you didn't feel, like a lot of people didn't feel anxious about COVID, a lot of people enjoyed the slower pace and they enjoyed the time at home and they maybe started businesses and like maybe it was the making of them. But even if you didn't feel consciously aware of it, something at that level that's that genuine, like it's not just, oh, you don't need to worry about that. We did need to worry. Like it was a very valid cause for concern. It was the biggest threat we'd ever faced on a global scale that everyone was impacted by. Like that doesn't just disappear. Yeah. When you spend, like we had to spend, if you think about it, how many months on end conditioning ourselves to believe that we weren't
24
safe.
months.
Yeah. Like. So that to reverse that conditioning, just because things opened up and we were like, right, it's fine now. Yes, you might be, you know, able to go out and do things, but that message takes so long to unwind in your body. And I do think that so many people ended up arriving at anxiety, maybe not to their awareness directly because of COVID, but COVID became a huge vulnerability factor that put strain and pressure on their nervous system, so that when they went to go to work and to cope in their relationships and everything, all of those things were a little bit more difficult. And COVID has to have had an impact on that.
Subconsciously. This is the thing. It's like an iceberg. Like, do you ever see that model, especially even in coaching? It's like an iceberg. Think of the Titanic. You only see the little tip of the iceberg that's in the Antarctic, but it's underneath the surface how big that iceberg is. And that is like how we all like felt. And I'd say a lot of us are feeling as well. Do you know that way? I think myself, and I was only saying to you, like I have down here as well, like over 40% experienced anxiety, like especially in like COVID, and it affects 1 in 6 people.
Yeah.
So, which is crazy. And I do think it's on the increase now more than ever with the pressures of the world, you know, social media, inflation. It's just becoming a lot. Like, these are obviously huge world factors, but then there's personal factors as well, which is more important. Like, you know, but I found myself, because even from when I talked to you last, I actually looked and it was September 2022.
Wow.
You were last, on my podcast, Empower with Emma. And we touched on, you know, like your own personal experience, because you would have suffered with anxiety attacks and like your work. You can touch on that again. But like how much I feel then I've like my own anxiety. Like, you know, I thought I
You
just
think it's
was like
worsened?
I think it has heightened because of like, number one, self-employment. Number two, you know, my hormones are changing. I'm getting older. I am a sensitive person and I'm an empath as well. And I do feel things deeply. But I just think and then it's the worries of the world. It's like, as I'm getting older, like, yeah, you can keep things at bay to a point. But then there's a point, like you can control yourself, but then there's other things you can't control. So it is learning to control you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we tend to not give enough weight to those bigger, wider factors, you know, because it doesn't feel like it directly affects us. Like you can go and do your job and go and do your podcast and you're like, well, what's going on the other side of the world doesn't affect me, but it does because of how you're consuming it. And like you say, there's all these environmental factors, whether it's the drip feed of horror on your phone all the time, the just constantly being plugged in and online, and like that, just that brain pattern, that sequence of events where you keep looking for another hit of dopamine, all of that, seeing such horrible things happen in the world, feeling completely powerless in that, because anxiety, the nature of anxiety is to look for certainty. And like in the world right now, with how much we observe, we cannot give ourselves that certainty. So, and anxiety is, Dr. Owen O'Kane just defines it as an intolerance of uncertainty. So your brain is looking for a way to solve it, but it can't. And then you take all those bigger things that we underestimate that are collectively pressure on us, and then you add in your own day-to-day life stuff, whether that's your nurture, your nature. Maybe you're just predisposed to be a more anxious person. Maybe your wiring just means that you might be more susceptible than a friend of yours. And then it doesn't really matter what's going on in your life, as such as how you came into the world, how you're wired, how you're designed. And then all of those things. And then you add in a stressful job, or you add in parenting, a challenging situation at home. And of course you have a recipe for constantly, maybe it's like a constant simmer of anxiety. Maybe it's where I went to, which was very chronic. Like I was ill with anxiety, like you described, more high functioning anxiety, where you can still get up and do the things, but it's just always niggling there in the background. It is almost bizarre, I think, for someone to live in the world today, a world which we were never designed for, with a system that was never meant to be in this environment, and not feel anxiety.
Yeah, it's wild, even breaking it down like that as well. I think, like, coming from your own experience, because I know you touched on it as well on my previous podcast, but for new listeners to listen to it as well, like, obviously, is your third book? Fourth. Oh my God, girl. It'd be like Harry Potter. Chronicles of Narnia. I love it. How did you get to the place where you are today?
It took me a long time. There were so many facets that came together, and I really very prescriptively chart through all that in the book, because I think the question I get asked most is like, what can I do and where do I start? Like, yes, I know I'm anxious. Yes, I know I'm experiencing anxiety. Like, we know that now. Like, we talk about it. We're all aware of it. We use the word. We don't need someone to say, I know what it is. You've got anxiety. We know that. So it's what to do, where to start, what turns to take, what dead ends to avoid. And I went such an arseways way around getting to where I am now because I didn't have the awareness. We didn't have the conversations. I didn't have the knowledge. I had really unhelpful perceptions of what it meant to experiencing anxiety. I was so concerned with what it said about me, that I was weak or broken or beyond help, and that there was something really wrong with me. So I stayed stuck in very bad anxiety for a very long time, trying desperately to just think my way out of it, which is a mistake.
Did you go to like therapy or
yeah,
doctors?
like I did so many different things. I tried so many things. I was also very vulnerable to like basically charlatans who would say, try this one thing and you'll never feel it again. I was like, sign me up, but because I didn't understand the mechanisms of anxiety, none of those things were going to make a difference until I met myself right where I was with self-compassion, which was so hard to do because I did not like myself. I did not want to be this sensitive person who feels too much. And it was a lot of different things, whether it's lifestyle changes that I had to make, completely working on my relationship towards anxiety, my perception of what anxiety actually is, the psychoeducation of just understanding your nervous system, which makes it so much less about you and so much more manageable. It's not a reflection of your personality. It's your nervous system under strain, and every single person's nervous system is capable of having that strain. Yeah. It's not even saying like 1 in 5 people experience it. Every human experiences it. Yeah. But just for some people, it becomes maladaptive, where it's really impacting their life. Like, you would not be alive if you didn't have the ability to experience anxiety. It's a survival mechanism.
100%.
But for me, medication was a part of it. It was a very long road to letting go of the shame that I needed a little bit of extra support to get my head above water. It was a lot of trial and error, and time and distance and understanding and growing up. And
what medication were you on?
So there's people kind of get a bit confused about medication having this addictive nature. Only the fast acting ones, like if you're taking a Xanax or something, that's going to relieve some of the physical symptoms in the here and now, but that's not a long-term solution. I do wish I could go back in time and just be gentle enough to myself to say, you can take one of those just to get through this moment when it was so bad, because I thought that meant like you've really lost it now. Like, if you need this was 2014. Like, this was not what we were talking about. And our perceptions,
and we weren't talking about anxiety and medication. It was like,
well, what we knew of medication was what we saw on movies and TV, which was a completely like cracked woman who ends up in an asylum. Like, no one wanted that for themselves. And we had really warped perceptions of what that would say about us and mean. So there was so much stigma and so much shame. And I think that's still there to a certain extent. But then, so I didn't take anything. I tried so hard to like will myself through it, to white knuckle through it, because that's what society preferred and prefers, is when you can grit it out on your own. And I was doing everything I could. I was doing talking therapy, and nothing was meaningfully moving the needle for me. Like, I was so unwell. And then what I felt like was the weakest moment, which was actually probably the opposite, was when I remember apologizing to my doctor that I was going to ask the question about medication, and feeling her disappointment and judgment, which was like, I was asking for permission to suffer a little bit less. And I think people have this misconception that medication means it's the easy way out, or you won't have to. That is not true. Like, when it comes to the longer term medication, which actually helps anxiety over time, there's nothing addictive about those. They don't solve all your problems. Basically, they just took me from a completely frayed, stretched nervous system to one that just felt a little bit better able to cope, so that I could then benefit from the breathing exercises and the walks and the changes and the, lowering my caffeine intake, that kind of thing. It just took the edge off a little bit. It just enabled me to access the tools that are there. So that was a huge thing for me, but it was by no means the only thing. And I still, like, even when I went on medication and it was definitely making a difference, I was still experiencing huge amounts of anxiety. I was still capable of having panic attacks, but I was in a slightly less horrific, I wasn't living in a state of constant, like, catastrophe in my mind, like, where I felt like there was a gun at my head all the time. It was just a little bit less than that. So that was a huge part of it. And really, ultimately, I think what changed and why I feel like I can now say I overcame that, and I'm no longer someone who, like, I don't say I have an anxiety disorder, because I don't know that I ever did. I think we are all capable of feeling anxiety, some more than others. I went through a period of time where it was really intense because of various factors that came together to give rise to it. And the biggest thing for me is I no longer fear anxiety. I don't look over my shoulder wondering, oh, it's going to come back and get me, because I know it so well. I'm not afraid of it. I understand completely. It makes sense why I would have felt it. I think it makes sense for most people when they can tease apart the layers of what's going on. I used to think that being well and being okay was a measure of like how long it had been since my last panic attack. But that keeps you stuck in this cycle of like, well, what if it happens? And then that means I'm not doing okay.
And you get anxiety from the anxiety.
And that was the thing. And the fear of the fear, anxiety about anxiety was the worst thing for me. I was never anxious about something tangible, like I have to go and do this job. Or I was so frightened that I was so capable and vulnerable to falling apart. Like, I think it's such a human fear. Like, what if I just lose it? Yeah. And I really felt like I lost myself. I didn't have control over my body. My thoughts were just not my own.
Do you think you hit like rock bottom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that before you had your son?
Yeah. This was when I was 25.
And what was that moment you actually felt, I'm at my low? Like, this is my low, that like the lowest I felt. What was that like? And what did it feel like?
Two ways of looking at it, I suppose. I was so afraid of hitting rock bottom, because that felt so lonely and isolating and scary. And I didn't see anyone else going through it around me that I knew of.
And you were only in your 20s.
I was 25.
Yeah.
That's when it had always been brewing. I had always experienced anxiety in some ways.
Was it burnout as well?
It came to a head when I was 25. And I actually think that's so interesting, because that's the age at which our prefrontal cortex is fully formed.
Yes.
You're only when you're 25 are you then fully all online up here.
And you know, in saying that as well, my first panic attack I had only when I was 26. And I remember that feeling. I was like, what is this? Like, I mean, out of nowhere, it just came over me. I couldn't breathe. It was like someone was standing on my chest. I was in Australia. I was after coming back from visiting here for, like, I was away for a year, and I went home to Ireland for a year, and then I went back to Australia for my second year. And when it's like, I stopped, I was like, pull over the car. I was on the way to the cinema, and out of nowhere, I couldn't breathe. Like, the tears, I was like, what is actually, I thought I was having a heart attack. Like, and I was like, what is that? And I remember ringing my mum, and she said to me, Emma, that started to happen me in my late 20s. But it just came out of nowhere. I was like, what is this?
I think it's really common for women to have it around that time. And I don't know, but I think there has to be some link between
100%
developmentally where we're at and becoming an adult, like in the biological sense, I think is when a lot of stuff will kind of come to the fore. But the rock bottom thing it was very dark. I started to experience depression as a side effect of the anxiety. I wouldn't have been someone who was depressed or suffered from depression. Like, anxiety is all up here. Depression feels very like a gravitational pull down. But it was almost a symptom of the anxiety, because I so desperately did not want to continue living if that's how life was going to be. Because didn't leave the four walls of my apartment. I couldn't go to the shop. I couldn't even be in my own.
How long did that last for?
That was a really intense period of a few months. It was, I think I remember like Easter 2014, I really felt like this is not going to write itself, like, of a weekend off. And then it was...
How long did you stay in the house for? What was the longest you ever stayed and didn't go outside the four walls?
I definitely did go out, but I was going back to my parents' house and sleeping with my mum in the bed with her.
I only asked this because this is bringing me back to a place when I had that anxiety attack. That's why I can relate to a point. When I had my first anxiety attack when I lived in Australia, I remember I could not go outside the four walls. I think it was 8 or 9 days.
Wow.
And that's very uncommon for me. That's when I really related to what you just said there, because you have the anxiety and you have the depression. And there's this pull. And after that, I remember talking to my mum, and I was like, Mum, like, all I was doing was I was barely having a shower and feeding myself.
Yeah,
like, the thoughts of going outside, I was like, I can't put my foot. I don't know where this came from, Caroline. I swear to God, I couldn't go outside. I remember my mum saying to me, Emma, if you get over 10 days, 2 weeks, you're gonna have to go to the doctor, because it's not normal. You're allowed, maybe I felt homesick because I was
so hard being on the other side of the world.
Yeah, on the other side. Because I remember my ex at the time, he went to work. He was in construction or whatever at the time. He went out at 7, 8 o'clock. I remember Breaking Bad. That was only after coming out. And that was an hour long episode each. I watched 9 episodes straight in bed with the curtains pulled, and he came home from work and it was 6 or 7. He was like, have you not moved? And that's when I knew, I was like, this is hitting me. Like, it was like that aha moment. And I remember I went, I think the following day or the next day, I was like, I'm going to just go outside. I'm going to go to the shop. I'm just going to step outside the house. And I stepped outside and I could feel that soar of anxiety. I honestly don't know where this came from. And then like day by day, I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to the shop. And then slowly it built. But I can totally relate to that. And it's probably something I've never shared on the pod or with people or whatever. And you nearly forget about that time where I have experienced that. And it's crazy, that division between, oh, I'm anxious, but I actually am depressed.
You're depressed because in that situation, you so don't want to feel that anxiety. And at the time, for me anyway, I did not believe that I would get over it. Nothing was helping. I really thought this is hopeless. So, and then you get depressed because of that, because you're like, I can't get up and do this every day. I physically can't feel this way. And I think like that feeling you had to stay inside, as awful as it is, that was your body really trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
Because when
like
you go
self-compassion, like in a way.
Like when you go outside. So I remember some of my most visceral panic attacks. I'm in like a shopping centre, in Dundrum shopping centre, when, you know, there's so many different things going on. I was already in the throes of anxiety, and my boyfriend, now my husband at the time, he was like, come on and we'll go out for like something to eat. And I just really wanted to try for him. But it's like you've lost like a layer of protection. Like it's like you've lost your skin and
you feel exposed. Yeah.
And you are so vulnerable to light, to like sounds, to all this sensory input which feels threatening, and your body just wants to shut down and be safe. And it's, again, I thought this anxiety has taken me over, it's attacking me, but actually it was me trying to protect myself when my nervous system was so fraught and so overdone. But because I didn't understand that, I made it 10 times worse, because I was so hard on myself, and I thought, this is like, what is this saying about you? Like, you're a disaster. Yeah. So losing that perception helped me overcome it. But I remember in Dundrum having a panic attack, and then just thinking, like, what does this say about me? And worse than the panic attacks was the aftermath and how I would treat myself after, where I would be so like, what? Look how bad you are. Like, look how bad you can't. This is evidence of how not okay you are. Look at all your friends are fine. You are not for this world. You are not you were not meant to be here. Like, I had all these horribly intrusive thoughts of
like negative self-talk.
Something must have been wrong when I was born. They missed something.
Really?
Like, I started to think like I was just a bit broken, or like just out of step with everyone else. All of that was anxiety fueling those thoughts. But like I say, it was the fear of the fear. I was so frightened of when I'd feel it, and I felt it all the time. But then there was times when it would be so acute, like a bomb going off in my body, and I wouldn't have to be anywhere for that to happen. I could be sitting on my sofa at home. And I think what kept me stuck for so long, and where I think people go wrong, totally understandable, is this idea that we can think our way or will our way out of it, when anxiety is actually so much of an expression, like a physiological expression of our body. It's not like anxious thoughts that come up. Like, I hate this message that says like you are what you think, because I think it makes people feel so responsible for the scary thoughts they have, when actually a lot of them are automatic and they don't have to be attached to your identity or your personality.
Yes.
And if I was told, oh, well, you are what you think, I was like, well, I can't stop thinking this way, and I don't mean this. And then you start the self-blame triggers, because you're like, I'm doing this to myself.
You're branding yourself.
I'm willing this on myself. No. Thoughts can come and go when your brain is so worn down, and when the part of your brain that can help to rationalize and tell everything, look, we're good, we're safe, we're okay here. When that part is so worn out because you've been stressed or strained for so long, it can't show up the way it normally would. Then all your thoughts are going to become tinged with fear. And all your thoughts, then anxiety is going to be there as a background hum in a sensitive system like yours or mine. And we think that those thoughts are something we're choosing to have. And I think we have to be so careful to understand that a lot of our thoughts are automatic, and it's not the presence of the thoughts that matters, but what you do with them.
Yeah, and I do think it's so, like, it is becoming aware, because even with anxiety, and you said that at the start of the pod, I think it's very important for people to know, like, if you're aware of your anxiety, you're already at the start of working your way through it, where if you aren't aware of it, then it's so hard as well not to know. But even like you were saying, the negative self-talk, the no compassion, like when you start embodying all that negativity, that is going to bring you down then to that really down stage as well, because you can't bring yourself out. And like, how long were you in that for? Like,
I would say, I'd say it was a full year.
because you left your job. Yeah, I remember you said
I
that to
physically
me.
couldn't get into work. I couldn't.
Yeah,
I couldn't do that.
love you.
Now, it was nothing really to do with the job. The job was just, it was just lit the match that was always probably there. Like I say, I think I came into the world probably wired a little bit more prone to anxiety than someone else might be.
You're a sensitive person.
Yeah, I'm a sensitive person. I think we all have like an alarm system that's supposed to go off when it needs to. Mine is a little bit like trigger happy and can kind of trip when it's not really meant to, or certainly when I was a kid and when I was a teenager.
We're welcome to the club. We're both in that club.
And then I think when I was in my 20s, it was just like it was going to come out one way or another.
Yeah.
And up until that point, it had always been there, but I never knew that I was suffering with anxiety or my mental health. It was always like gut issues, so I never connected
Oh my
the dots.
God, same.
And no one else ever
IBS,
did. Yeah.
gluten intolerant,
I
the
was
whole
desperate
shebang.
for something that I could put my finger on and say, this is what it is. I remember waking up from colonoscopies and them telling me, no, everything's fine. And I was like, please don't tell me that, because then it's me. Then it's not a problem I can separate myself
always
from.
say that it's me. Hi, I'm the problem,
And that was a horrible realization. Like, it wasn't.
I know.
Like, I never.
You want to blame it on a condition to be like, there you go, take a tablet. It's not me.
Like, when people say like, well, I was having a panic attack and I was convinced I was having a heart attack, I was terrified of the fact that I was having that happen and it wasn't a heart attack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
You have to take ownership of yourself.
Yeah, I was so frightened that I believed I'd willed myself into that horrible place that I was like, well, I'm just going to lose my mind then. Like, it was petrifying. And I so wanted someone to say, no, this makes sense and this is why. And I didn't get that. And of course, like, all of that just made it so much worse. I blame myself so much more. And it's not like we talk about like being kind to ourselves and stuff. And I used to be like, oh, whatever. Like, if that worked, I would have done that by now, and be a bit eye rolly and stuff. But for me, when I actually look at the neuroscience of what's happening in our body,
all this now,
when I was being self-critical after having a very strong wave of anxiety, or pretty much all the time, I think from what I understand now, because like I said, our brains, when we're anxious, are looking for some kind of action or certainty. The action that my anxiety felt it could do was to like turn on myself and try and motivate myself out of the funk I was in with tough love by saying, come on, like, get a grip. You can't, like, this is ridiculous. You can't be so weak. You need to be stronger. And all of what I thought would help me actually just poured more petrol on an anxious system. Like, it actually triggers, it keeps the cycle of anxiety going. You're launching an attack on yourself. You're launching more stress hormones. You're actively feeding an anxiety cycle. And we don't know that. Like, we need to realize that it's not just, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. You're literally making your anxiety 100 times worse. Whereas when I then gave time and understood self-compassion, which I would have thought was just like a load of waffle until I understood the science of it, that literally pumps the brakes on the stress hormones.
Girl.
Like, on a physiological level, it's not an opinion. It's not like a nice idea. It's objective. It literally tells your brain, no, we're not going to do this now. And it doesn't mean you have to love what you're feeling or love yourself. It's just turning it towards, this is really hard right now. What do I need in this moment? And not having it reflect on you as a person, but actually just having that kindness to say, you're carrying a lot right now. This is a lot for you. Like, what would make a meaningful difference? Even one tiny thing in this moment.
Yeah.
Forget about tomorrow. Forget about trying to solve all your problems.
Yeah.
And I would have been like, well, that, like, what difference will that make? But over time, and the science is there to prove it, like, you literally change your wiring.
100%.
And when you can bring your body into a calm place, then over time that becomes easier to access. And then the fear of the anxiety starts to simmer down, because you can just be in it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can tolerate it a bit more.
I call that the power of pause.
Very good.
Yeah, because I can relate so much to your journey as well. That's why you're here. And even The self-compassion thing, I would have really only explored because I was like the go, go, go up at 5:30. Like I didn't know, but it was high function anxiety and I was masking at the same time. But then when the shit hit the fan in 2020, COVID, you know, breakups, everything like that, I had to go internal and fix my inner world. And a big part of that, even though I done like the life coaching and neuroscience course, I did understand myself to a point, but it was mindfulness that altered everything for me. And the biggest thing in mindfulness, not only is it awareness and bringing your attention to the present moment and your own self and your body, your internal body, but it's compassion. It's learning to have love for yourself and compassion, because like I'd say from day dot, Caroline, like I would have been my own worst enemy, like as in like you're not good enough. No, like you can't have a break. You have to keep working, get up. Exactly
That's
the
our
same
culture,
as you.
I think.
Tough love. But like, and I do think kind of some of that does come from our parents and how we grew up as well. Do you know what I mean? Like you got to get up, you got to get at it, you know. Like,
because that's how they were parented.
Exactly.
It's
Do you know
not
what
their
I mean?
fault. It's just the culture of the times that we lived in.
And I understand that now. But I always say, even for us, it's learning to, and I read a book on this, but I nearly had to switch it off. I was like, what the hell? It's, you're learning to like reparent yourself and learning to have compassion for yourself and make up your own little bubble of compassion and your own beliefs from what you have been told in order for you to function in day to day. Like, what does love mean to you? It's not, it's get up and work. Yes, it's, you know, feed your family, do those things, but looking after you and that little bubble instead of feeling stressed out of your head. Because even I'd look at my mum. My mum had 4 children. My nana had 11.
Whoa.
You know, and it's so funny even saying that. My other nana, God rest her soul, God rest both of their souls, the one who only passed recently.
I saw, I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh thanks. She was like my best friend. Like literally, it'd be nearly a year actually in May. But the funny thing is, right, she was 88, right? And I feel like a bit teary now even talking about her. I'm actually gonna cry even talking about her.
Okay.
And I haven't cried on a podcast at all, but like, yeah, she's just so special to me. Like, and I haven't cried in so long talking about her, but I think it's coming up to our anniversary. But the one thing I love, right, is like, we need to have tissues here, guys. The one thing that I absolutely loved, right, about her, we had this special relationship, right, where I could literally describe her emotions. She couldn't do that. Like, you know, when you think about it, like our nanas, our granddads, they just got up and got on with it. They didn't know what emotions were. They had to just work through it. So one time she got to a point where she was housebound. She actually gave up work. And she started to deteriorate when she retired, because she was a dressmaker. So she retired and she just used to sit in her house more, like less. And she'd only ever go outside if, like, you know, I brought her to the shops or my auntie brought her to the doctor. So me and my auntie were her sole caregivers.
Wow.
Do you know, Ashley did help as well. So there was a lot. But anyways, so I'd say to her, oh, we're going to go to the Botanic Gardens and we're going to go to the doctor. So I'd make a whole day of it just to give people context. I know I'm rambling. But the day would come and she'd ring me and she'd be like, oh, I'm not feeling the best. I'm going to the toilet loads and all this, right? And I'm like, bless her. She was like, still come down though, and blah, blah, blah. So I'd say to her, Nana, I was like, why? She's like, oh, just my tummy's at me. And I was like, I know why your tummy's at you. I was like, you're just getting all these feelings inside because sometimes you knowing that you have to go outside of your safe space makes you feel a little bit awkward, and you know, you can be a little bit scared of it, and that's why your tummy gets upset and you have to go to the toilet and you don't feel well. And I said, that's called anxiety. And she goes, how do you always know how to describe how I feel? Like literally.
How amazing for her to get that gift from you, though, that you could. She probably felt that her whole life.
I know.
And never had the words and never connected the dots. And I think that's a huge part of, we talked about like maybe why we're feeling so anxious these days. I think it's an invisible layer is our responsibility, not just for, you know, I'm a parent now to a child and that's a whole other thing, but healing ourselves from our childhood and breaking generational cycles, and even the word generational trauma sounds like heavy, but it does, actually, doesn't it? It is significant because I mean, my parents did their best with the information they had, but I remember feeling like as a kid, like I didn't feel well and I needed my mommy, and I would have given anything to just crawl into bed beside her. I remember like it never would have occurred to me to ask for that or do that because I wanted to, and I had to be a good girl. Yeah. And I do think there's silent, quietly building layers there of needs that were not met
100%.
and feelings that were not explored as kids. And it's no wonder, I think our generation, it came to a head when we were in our 20s, because that's when we started to learn a bit about it.
Yeah. No, big time as well. Because even the thought, like sharing things, like reparenting, like knowing your knowledge, but then it's the awareness and the compassion towards like our parents, our grandparents as well, but not having resentments towards it as well.
No, I mean, it's really
Because
important.
you could. Like I've had it before.
Yeah, and I'm always like, I've teased apart my own childhood because I really felt like, well, there has to be something that could make sense, because I felt like I was kind of embarrassed to have fallen apart for no good reason. I was looking for something, and I felt like it was silly to try and chart my childhood when it all looked really good, and I didn't want my parents to feel bad, but there were little moments here and there where I know as a sensitive child that I probably needed more, but we wouldn't have had that awareness at the time.
No.
So I definitely do not blame, and arguably we have too much information now. I do not blame my parents, because I think it's just the way I came into the world.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know what is lovely, because I'm going to touch on now, but the main thing is you are so self-aware now with compassion for you. And I was only talking to you off air about this, even like you shared openly about this on your social media. You went to New York with your son, your husband, but it took a bit of a turn. But I love the way, what did you do with that time? You actually had a few hours to yourself and was like, I'm going to bring myself for a coffee. I'm going to bring myself shopping.
A few cocktails, actually.
No, but I was like, wow. Like, because I know you said your son is autistic. I was like, whoa, like this is so admirable and inspiring. And, you know, there is obviously going to be some parents that can't do this, and I totally resonate with, but I was like, wow, like that's amazing, where probably Caroline a few years ago wouldn't have done that.
No, I would have probably blamed myself. And I think because of my experience with anxiety, when it came to my son, there was a tendency to think that it was my doing. And then getting the diagnosis of autism for him helped me.
How old is he?
He's 5. And the first thing I said to my husband when we got the diagnosis, which we knew we would get.
How old was he when he got the diagnosis?
5.
5? Oh, only recently.
It's only last September.
Way.
So I remember saying to him, the first thing I said was, oh, it wasn't all our fault. Like, we didn't do this.
Okay.
So I think, well, that awareness has helped me stop blaming myself, which is, I mean, when you become a parent, like it's impossible not to feel responsible for every little thing and quirk and challenge. But I'm very good at acknowledging when I'm in when the shit hits the fan for me, which it happens often in this new chapter of my life. And it doesn't matter how much work I've done on myself. It doesn't matter how much I overcame anxiety or how much I know it. When you put someone in the situation that I'm in, where you're parenting a little person who you love so much, who you are responsible for, whose nervous system needs your nervous system to cope, who, like, he carries so much anxiety, and that's part of the neurodiversity.
Yeah.
It is impossible not to fall apart with that. It doesn't matter like how much work you've done. You can't be
Do you allow yourself to fall apart?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And then I allow myself to be very compassionate.
Instead of just putting a front on and let's go, we need to cope.
No, I really regularly need to say, I'm not coping today. I saw a quote. It was like an old Victorian phrase, and it was like, I have a bad case of the morbs, they used to say. And some days that depressive pull, because I feel in this situation now, it's not, I can't actually change anything. You know, whereas before when it was just me, I could try all the things and do all the things. I can't change this situation for him. It's just hard in and of itself, and especially because he's so young. And I have to just constantly let myself hit the floor with it and then build myself back up. And it's not about, well, what support do I need or how can I cope better? That is what coping looks like in this part of my life, because that's just the reality of the situation, you know?
Yeah.
But something on the compassion thing I think is important to say as well. And I have a chapter at the end of the book, and you'd asked me.
What book is this now?
Everything I wish I had known about anxiety, and I am so proud of it. But the last chapter,
this is the new book that's coming out
on April 16th.
There we go.
Available.
I was getting to it. I was getting to the plug.
But the book charts it's like a roadmap, so literally where to start, and my own story is in that as well, and comes right through to like overcoming it and what it looks like on the other side of having been that person who's so crippled with anxiety. But I finish with a sort of a sentiment around what's called compassionate accountability. Lovely. Or self-compassionate accountability, because I think sometimes compassion can fall into a trap of being like really self-indulgent, or we think it just means giving up and just surrendering to every every inclination we have. Like if I was to always be really compassionate whenever I felt anxiety in the past, I wouldn't have gotten out of the bed, you know?
Yes.
So the trick is, and I interviewed a woman, Dr. Kimberly Quinlan, on my podcast for this, and she introduced me to the idea of the kind of sweet spot of compassionate accountability. And it's, yes, knowing when to push and knowing when to pull back. Like on some days you'll know this is not a day where I can I'm not going to learn a lesson today. I just need to, I need to totally surrender to it. But there will come a time where you need to say, yes, I'm feeling it, but I'm thinking of myself in the long term and what is best for me overall. And that might be doing the thing that feels hard.
Yeah.
And that might be, it might not always be giving into every single feeling. So compassionate accountability allows me to really acknowledge and hold space for whatever it is I'm feeling and say, yeah, this is hard and this is a lot and this makes sense. And anyone would feel this way. Like this is not just a you thing. Anyone in this situation would feel this. So feel that and let that sit on you today. And like, if today it's all too much, that's okay. But ultimately, the compassionate accountability piece helps me go into action mode of like, what can I do to help myself here? And I think it's really important not to just fall into a duvet. Yeah. Like I would literally never leave like my house.
I love this because I can relate, because I had this day yesterday, right? Everything you're saying, it's so funny. It's like it's all synced up what we're talking about. So yesterday, obviously, like, you know, I had a few drinks there like the weekend, and then I felt a bit like fluffy, my mood. I'm coming into PMS. Do you know what I mean? Like I've had such a busy few weeks, and I was like, do you know what? I had 2 events and an appointment and loads of things to do. And I was like, I'm just going to cancel the day and go with how I feel. Yeah. I'm just going to cancel. I'll just go out for a walk or whatever. And in that moment, I was like, no, I'm going to think of my higher self, and I'm just going to push through today because I know I'm going to feel better if I push through the day, because there's things in there's events I have to show up to for work. You know, I think I just need to push through the feeling and then go to the end of how the end goal, right? And I did that. I got up, I had an appointment, I had 2 work events, and then I went to the gym, came home, typed out 3 podcasts, and I was like, hell fucking yeah. Do you know? Yeah. And I seen something, I actually put this up on TikTok, and a follower messaged me. She was like, follow the plan, not the mood. Or follow the plan, not the feeling. And I was like, that is so right. Because sometimes, like my plan yesterday, I had that, but I was like, oh, I just feel like that. Sometimes you know, like what you said, when you can push through.
And I think that's something that comes with time and knowing. I think we live in a culture that could probably veer towards always get up and do it. You'll never regret it. I think
you're gonna sway.
Like, there is definitely a time and place for today is not the day.
Yeah.
I'm at capacity. And that maybe wasn't that for you yesterday.
No,
but
it
only
wasn't.
You
I had to.
Yeah.
I just knew. I was like, I'm at a point, I'm not at capacity, and I know I should do those things.
But you were having like an off day, whereas if you are in a phase where you are really suffering with cumulative anxiety that's getting on top of you,
I'd be done.
That will require you to be like, what can I pare back on here? Because I need space and time to feel like,
and I've had those
safety.
days.
And
I'd be like, I'm having a day off. I do not give a fuck about the world.
Yeah.
Like I'm surrendering.
It's really important. And it's kind of a day-to-day temporary thing. You have to just check in with yourself and know, I mean, that sounds so trite, but like, you will know yourself whether it's something like this is in my best interest long term, or I know this would just push me over the edge.
Yeah, totally. And then like just going back to say, like, obviously from the start of your own journey, like what, 14 years ago was it?
Oh, bloody hell, yeah. I mean, really since day dot, but it was 2014 when it all shit hit
so when
the
you
fan.
think about it, like obviously we weren't educated on like mindfulness and breath work and being aware to now like, what's your anxiety toolbox? So I was thinking about mine. I have my own little toolbox. Like, what's your toolbox when you're like, right, I'm having an anxious day, I'm gonna go in, see what I need.
There's 2 steps on the roadmap that are important here. One of them is to figure out what works for you and you alone, not what looks good on social media, not what everyone else subscribes to. Like, for example, I just cannot stomach like a cup of cacao. Like, I know that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm doing self-care wrong. Yeah. I think it's really important not to fall into like wellness as a performative thing. So for me, like the things that are totally mine and not applying to everyone else, I am really into ASMR.
Okay.
which yeah. Now it's very specific, right? Because it's not. I actually prefer a very soft spoken, like goes from soft spoken
Like
into a whisper.
whispery kind of.
But it's like it sounds so bananas. And when my husband watches it, he's like, "What is this shite?" I'm like,
It's
"Yeah."
self-soothing for
But
you.
for me, for whatever way I'm wired, when I watch those videos with that certain voice, some kind of brainwave activates where I get transported into such a deep state of relaxation. Like it is phenomenal. I wish I had discovered it like, so many years ago.
Okay.
But if I'm having a stressy day and I get a chance to like lie down and watch a little video, oh my God, like it's better than taking 5 Xanax. Honest to God, I'm. But it's niche and it's not something everyone will feel.
That you want.
Yeah, and like you could send me a voice note and
love
whatever way
that.
the tone of your voice is on the, I could just listen to that again and again because it's like you know that massage thing that
lovely.
goes like that.
I
And
love
it's
an
like
Indian head massage.
It's like a ribbon that like wraps around my legs and just it's true and utter safety and calm.
and you can feel tingles in your body
Yeah,
of like
it's-
relax
it's
and
incredible.
surrender.
Now, that is so niche and that is so
No,
like
it's not, because my best friend, she suffers with anxiety and she listens to ASMR. And she was
Well-
like, Emma, I do be foaming at the mouth and it just relaxes me. She
and I get real
loves it.
scarlet then when my husband comes in. I have to
No.
be on my own to watch this because I feel so self-conscious because it no longer works when he's in the room because I'm like, this sounds mad. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
actually need to be alone. But and the more I expose myself to it, the more you can actually get numb to it. And then you have to find a different creator for their content.
Yes.
But so that is a very much just an example of finding what works for you. But then there are things that objectively are helpful for everyone that everyone should have in their back pocket. And I think we're in an age where wellness is an industry, it's money, and we're constantly trying to rebrand and remarket and find new ways to sell something as simple as breath work or something as simple as going for a walk. And that's attractive and that's exciting, and that people are looking for something they can latch onto, a whole identity, a whole, ideology, a whole culture they can embed themselves into and be like, this is who I am now and this is going to transform me. When you strip back all those layers and you just look at something like breath work, which again, I used to be like, whatever, like that is not going to make any difference to me. When you just look at the physiological, what's happening, the sequence of events in your body that happens when you do that, when you have like a slower out breath and you take away all the fanfare and you take away all the, like, you don't need to be in Lululemon to do it. Like, it's so basic and actually boring and simple. Those are the things that signal safety to your body.
Yeah.
And even if it's just for a few minutes, over time, the more you can access that safety, the more your brain will say, right, we can stand down the troops here, we're not needed. And it doesn't mean you have to not
Your
think
parasympathetic
anxiously.
and your sympathetic nervous system, yeah.
It's completely just allowed.
Yeah.
Like if you're going for a walk, which I would have been like, well, a walk's not going to make a difference. But when you're walking rhythmically and calmly, even if you're still feeling anxious and you're worrying about something or you're ruminating about something, your brain is signaling to your body, well, we must be safe and okay here, because if we were under threat, we would not be walking we wouldn't have that rhythm of left to right, left to
Yeah.
right. We would be chaotic. So we're obviously not in danger. So let's send down the reassurances to all the parts that we're safe. And so I love that. And that's something that I've brought to this book, which I didn't have before, which I didn't have in my first book about anxiety, because I was so focused on trying to fix it up here. When sometimes it's like, leave that, let that do its thing, meet the anxiety where it is, give your body cues and signals of safety in small doses, and your mind will follow suit. So those things for me are, and to be honest, like I have to say this as well, like I don't have panic attacks anymore because, and I'm not, even if,
When was your last one?
I don't know.
That's amazing.
Like even if I was, again, I think it's so important not to measure your success and how long it's been, because I could have one tomorrow and that doesn't mean I'm any less capable.
No.
Because I know it so well and because I'm so, like, it's how I would treat myself afterwards that would matter. I think the idea of overcoming it is not switching off your stress response. It's not having an anxious reaction to something.
Yeah, you can't just numb yourself.
No, because like I can't be a person I can't be a parent and not feel that. Like I have to care and be mobilized to do things and to feel like things are, high enough stakes to take action with. Of course I worry about things all the time, and it is ironic that I overcame it to the point I felt like I really meaningfully felt like this was no longer in the driving seat of my life. I would no longer factor anxiety into my decisions. I no longer was riddled with physical symptoms. I did not wake up feeling this sense of dread. In every way, it was no longer what it was in my life. And then I had a kid who, God bless him, is just like a little ball of anxiety in his own way, and that's the neurodiversity. But so that's put me into a new chapter where there's still like there's a lot of mental health challenges for me to contain everything for him, to support him. Like I say, when it's a situation that I cannot change and my brain wants to fix things and I don't have certainty of the future, I don't know what it's going to look like. So I absolutely have mental health challenges, but it is in no way because of my inability to cope. It's because of the situation.
Yeah.
Which I
you
think
can
is
only
so
control you, which is so important. And nearly like he's your teacher as well.
Yeah.
To be like, you have to control your inner world more than ever now in order not only to show up with yourself
Yeah.
or to yourself with compassion, but then to show up for him.
For him.
And then with your husband and the family as well.
yeah.
And then for work, there's so many different hats as well that you kind of have to take off as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So you probably even like, would you say even going back to like, just you find yourself a lot more aware now towards yourself, to give yourself that little self-nurture and nature,
Yeah.
especially after the diagnosis with your son as well, that you're like, okay, like where am I at today?
Well, like that was hugely validating. Like I didn't change the child in front of me. It didn't change the situation,
Yeah.
but it really stopped me, like I say, blaming myself.
Yeah.
I stopped, my brain was frantically looking for answers all the time. Like I would be Googling at night, like what if it's this and what if it's that? It just took all the variables down onto the table and was like, this is what it is. And just try and sit with that. And like that in itself was a huge learning. And I'm still honestly still in it because it's a hard thing to accept. There's a definitely, I think any other parents, autism parents will feel this, and it's hard to say, but there is a grief to it. Like,
yeah, I can only imagine.
You thought you would have, worrying about them, their future, the childhood they'll have, the relationships they may or may not have, like the difficulties they'll have. There's such a lot in that. But I am incredibly grateful that my experience thus far had me be so connected to myself. Like my mind and body used to be on the opposite sides of the room, and now they're so linked. So like when I like feel it, and when I feel that stress and that overwhelm and that feeling of like I can't cope in this moment, I'm so familiar with that. I know what to do with it. I don't need to change it. And I do go back to the tools that help me. Like I do go back to the ASMR. I will go for a walk and have that lovely bilateral stimulation in your head where it's just like side to side. And it just feels, you don't have to do anything. I don't have to overhaul my whole life to access these tools. And I don't have to change how I feel about the situation. I don't have to be like, this is amazing, I love the situation.
It's not trying to force the situation. I have to feel a certain way. I used to do that all the time. All right, I'm feeling this way. No, but you have to feel that way.
Yeah.
And that you were nearly getting anxiety over that, of trying to force yourself to feel. Where now it's honouring how you feel. Because I know for me, like you were saying, you've ASMR and you have your breath work as well. For me, the last while, I'd say I think that's why I turned to hiking and nature as well. So
amazing.
When I had that feeling of overwhelmed, like I literally just want to run away. It's like feeling on my chest. I could feel it bubbling up. It wasn't a panic attack, but it was going to be. Every time I'd say it was during COVID. This is when I started sea swimming, like 2020. I'd bring myself down to Portmarnock and I'd just go for a quick dip, and I'd sit on the rock, and it was like everything left my body. Or even I'd say it was around the start of the year, I could feel the anxiety like building up again. Take myself off to the mountains, Dublin mountains, go for a hike. And I remember I said this actually on one of my podcasts with Neil O'Murku, and I was literally walking up like, fab, this is all amazing, and out of nowhere I just got this thud in my chest. I was like like that. I was like, what's going on here? Now normally the old Emma in my head was like, just keep going, keep hiking up that hill. And I went, no, we're going to pause here. I'm coming back into my body. What am I feeling? Shortness of breath. I don't feel right. We're going to pause. And I always hold my hand on my heart and I go, just take a few deep breaths. And then a few minutes later, I came out of those feelings, and then I just took a slower pace then up the mountain. So that compassion and the power of pause.
Yeah.
And then knowing in my little toolbox to be like, that's what I need. But then there's other times, exactly what you said. Like I love a cup of cacao in the morning. I don't drink like caffeine. But then there's days I'm like, I just want to get out for a walk.
Yeah.
There's days I'm like, I'm got like this morning I went to yoga, or I'll journal. Like you don't need to do the thing every single day. I might not journal for 6 days straight and go to yoga, breath work, cacao. Like being honest, fuck off. Like, you know what I mean?
know. Well, if it
Do the
starts to become a
thing,
measure of your self-worth, then it's not
this
it's
is it
not
where I
helping.
was doing that. I was like, right, I need to get up and I need to go to yoga and do cacao and do journal and be at one with nature. And that is fabulous. Like, if that is your ritual, like, amazing. But there's times where I'm just not arsed doing that. And that is what balance and reality is like. You just going out to nature or just having a lie on in bed. You know, all
Don't
those,
know what that feels like anymore.
yeah, I know. I know. Sorry about that, babes.
I think it's amazing though, like the swimming and stuff. I did dabble a bit. I would say I'm more like sea dipping. I didn't really swim very much, but like it was so interesting to me that something so uncomfortable in the moment could feel so good after. And I actually I do include this in the book as well, this idea of like we have this pain pleasure balance. And like pain can maybe refer to discomfort or anxiety. And often when we press on the pain side of it, this is from Dr. Anna Lemke, who's her book, The Dopamine Nation, is amazing. It actually on like the brain chemistry level, when you press a little bit on the discomfort side, on the pain side, so you go and you do like a plunge pool or things that like I would have to be paid to do, your brain then overcorrects back to the pleasure side. So it's the same way when you scroll on your phone and you're looking for that dopamine hit. Your brain then pulls you back to feeling low because it's trying to get that balance all the time. Your brain just wants balance. So if you push it towards the slightly tough, sometimes like the swim or the hike, and then it balances back to a set point of calm and happiness, that's why that stuff works. And that's why things like scrolling and constantly looking for that hit and like not being satisfied and like adding more shit to basket, that's why you then have that low, because your brain is like, whoa, there was too much of that, we were never meant for that, and then it goes boop in the other way.
Yeah, you're so right as well. And like, tell us more about the book now that's out on the 16th before we head off, because like what is different in this book than the other ones?
So there's 10 years of learning, lived experience and expertise in this book. I had only started the podcast after I wrote my first book, so I hadn't connected with all the world renowned experts who have helped me tease out and understand and help people better manage anxiety and like really get into like, you can probably tell I'm quite interested in like the research and the neuroscience and all that stuff. So there's an awful lot that I didn't know yet. There's so much, and we hadn't had COVID. We didn't have like this drip feed of constantly live streaming genocide on our phones. Like it was the level of pressure we're under. I became a parent. That, you know, experience taught me, learning about him as a child helped me reframe and understand my own anxiety as a kid so much more. And what I really wanted to do with this book, which I like, and what I feel like was maybe missing from other books about anxiety, was they tend to conceptualize what anxiety is and talk kind of around and around about it. I really wanted to be like, okay, we get that. We're like, it's 2026. We know that. What do I do? So this is actually quite prescriptive. It's like, no, literally start here and watch out for this and turn this and don't skip this bit and go this in this exact order. And I promise you, there'll be such a difference between step 1 and step 10 if you take the time with
mapping it out.
It literally is a roadmap, but it's also part memoir because I obviously had to bring myself
of course,
into
you
it
have to bring personal experiences into it as well.
So I'm really proud of it. I know if it gets into the right hands, and that's out of my hands, really.
I can't wait to read it.
But I know that it will make a huge difference to someone who, like the person I was back then, anyone in that situation or anyone who's trying to understand themselves better. But like, you know yourself, it doesn't matter how good something is. It's like a lot of it's to do with luck and timing and someone else like opening the door for you or landing on Oprah's desk maybe. But I'm very happy.
Fingers crossed, girl.
I'm very happy it's landed on Emma Keogh's desk.
Oh, like I can't wait to read it now, definitely.
Thank you.
And
I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too, because I'm really like that as well. I love self-development. Maybe it's like, I think we all have hyperfixations as well, but you learn to dip off it as well. But it's so interesting to learn about things, not only from an outer source, but from an inner world as well, about your own self. And now, because I know you as well, it's great. Like, do you know that way? Right. I actually have some rapid fire here.
Go on.
Right. So what's the most controversial anxiety opinion?
That you can think your way out of it, that it's your thoughts are the problem.
Okay. So coping tool that you've ditched.
Exercise that actually doesn't make me feel good afterwards.
Right.
Like observing how you feel, not just in the moment, but in the aftermath. So like I remember doing a lot of running at the time, thinking this is what everyone was doing, and I felt so much worse because running is actually quite a strain on your nervous system and my heart would be racing, and it just didn't suit me. And it's amazing for some people, but for me, like a slower, more resistance-based thing. This is not a rapid fire answer.
No,
the anything that kind of triggered my parasympathetic nervous system versus stimulating my sympathetic nervous system, which didn't need any more stimulation. That to me was something I was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
True. And the next question was, go for a run or boxing?
I'd box the head off someone if I got the chance.
I was boxing as well.
I've never boxed. I've never boxed.
No, boxing's amazing.
I would like
for the
to.
aggression.
Yeah.
Yes.
My son has a big bean bag at home, and sometimes I just kick it. Sometimes you just need to scream into a pillow, and that's a really worthy way to take care of yourself.
Coffee, is it your friend or your enemy?
No, I don't do coffee at all.
Good woman. I don't drink caffeine. Last thing you Googled?
What did I Google? You can edit this pause out. What did I Google? I probably Googled something to do with my son's autism. And yeah, I'm just constantly trying.
ChatGPT is my best friend.
Yeah.
The best advice you've been given?
God. Oh my God, I'm drawing a complete blank here. What's the best advice I've been given?
Or like, is there a tagline or a quote that you're like, oh yeah.
Work with yourself rather than against yourself.
I love that. Work with yourself against yourself. And then just to throw a spanner in the works, if your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my God. I'm not prepared.
I had to
for
throw
any
this
of these.
one in there. I throw it in there every now and then.
I actually just listened to this song the other day, and I felt for my life right now, it was I think it was Picture This, and it was something like it's all going to be okay or something like that. And there's another song called Rainbow by what's her name, Casey Musgraves, and it's
yeah, she's real big now.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's like when it rains it pours, and you didn't even notice it's not raining anymore. Because when you're struggling to like keep your head above the waterline, all this stuff, and I was just like, nah. So I put that song on regularly to have a purge and a cry.
Yes.
But that is quite a sad song.
No, but I love that. You can always see the light in the darkness and the darkness in the light as well. You can have the yin and the yang.
That's how the light gets in.
That's it. Well, Caroline Foran, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. And I'm so excited for your new book, which is out on April 16th.
Thank you so much. It's been so nice to sit here in this bougie setup. Please, can I come back all the time?
Of course. You are always welcome. See you next week, guys.